call to order this regular meeting of the Superior Planning Commission for February 21st, 2012. Phyllis, would you like to call the roll, please?
Sure. Chairperson John Craycraft.
Here.
Vice Chairperson Craig Prestisator. Commissioners Joanne Eaton, Ian Alverson.
Here.
Clint Folsom.
Here.
Phyllis Harden here. Bob McCool. Michelle Rittmaster. Tom Ricker.
Here.
Assistant Town Manager Beth Moisky.
Here.
Attorney Christine Stresky.
Strateski here.
Stresky. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Item 3 on the agenda tonight is public comment on consent agenda and non-agenda items. If anyone would like to come forward and speak to the commission, please come forward. Seeing none, we will move on to item 4, the consent agenda, of which there are no items. And item 5 is the review of Chapter 18 of the Superior Municipal Code regarding the updated building codes. Staff have a presentation.
Yes, this was forwarded to the Planning Commission from the Town Board at last week's meeting, February 13th. Ernie Kern, our building inspector, is here to take you through his cover and the ordinance.
Ernie Kern, building official of Town Superior. I think, Town Board had this on their first reading at their last meeting. Some comments came up that they wanted to have the Planning Commission review it, so they presented forward. Basically have the same cover memo we gave to them, which says, we've adopted the building codes to protect the life and safety of the citizens of Town Superior. We've adopted codes in the past. Codes come out every 3 years. We generally adopt them as they go along. We did not adopt the 2009 codes. We are still in the 2006 series. When those came out, we were looking at them, but at the same time, they were talking about adopting a green ordinance for the commercial buildings. And so as we were reviewing both together, it was taking time, and we thought we'd adopt something together, and we didn't come to that. And 2012 codes actually came out at the end of 2011, so they're actually ready to be adopted. So we're looking to adopt those. And it goes through, and I list significant changes for each of the codes for the years 2009 and 2012. There really are not a lot of significant changes. The list is long. They're mostly cleanup items, corrections, and that sort of thing. For instance, they make a distinction between ambulatory healthcare facilities, the first one, and outpatient clinics, which means if someone is capable of self-preservation or not, you would have different building requirements for those areas. And it gets into things like live-work units, which weren't defined before, but which are becoming common in new developments where you're having mixed use and mass transit kind of all together in an area. So those have come up, and then some additions to the egress requirements and some fire department items and police department items like emergency responder radios, frequencies within the building, so that they can. And this is for high-rise buildings, which we don't really have any here. So, but that's the kind of thing that they get into. So. And in the residential code, they actually made amendments that we had written into our code as an amendment. It's now in the code, so we can delete that from our required of our amendments because they put a couple things in there. It had to do with the separation between your garage and your living space in your house. Through past editions, they had taken out the self-closer on the door. So we wrote it back into the code. They put it back in the code now. So we don't need to do an extra amendment for that. I guess really the main item I think that came up that they were interested in having you give your opinion on is the residential sprinkler systems. In 2009, they were put into the code for all single-family dwellings and all townhouses. And it was to take effect, the townhouses were to take effect immediately. The single-family dwellings were to take effect in 2011, January 1st. So in the 2012 code, there would both be in there and would be required. It was our intent to delete that section from the code and go back to the requirements that would have been in the 2006 code as far as separations between townhouse dwelling units. I guess the question came up is from one person one board member who felt it was important to have the sprinklers in the townhomes, not in single-family dwellings, but in the townhomes. And I think that's probably why they wanted to have this reviewed by the board. Also in your packet was a chart or summary of what other municipalities have done in the state of Colorado at this point. And, 16, it says 88, but there are actually 86 survey done of, actually it was 86 total, including a couple that weren't surveyed that I called to find out what they were doing. So the total communities that are checked on were 86. Of that, there's actually 16 are adopting the residential sprinklers system in the code with no changes. So it'll be for 1 and 2 family dwellings and single-family residences. Another 5 will be adopting them in some form or another. So 2 of them are for townhouses only. 3 of them are based on the size or location within their community that they felt are necessary. So it's actually 21 of 86, or 24% of communities in the state of Colorado will have adopted the ordinance with the residential sprinkler requirement included. And then there are 29% or 34%, 29 communities who have amended it out, or who, when they adopt it, they plan to amend out the code. So it's kind of split community-wide as to what they're looking to do with that item. I guess on the side, of course, residential sprinklers do save lives. As I was kind of researching it the last couple weeks, going through some stuff, they gave examples of communities who require it and don't require it. And the ones they look at, obviously, they had a fire in there where there was significant damage to the building and or loss of life, and then compared to a sprinkler building where they had a fire and it was contained to the area where it started. They also showed a couple of videos I ran across on there. It happened to must have been around Christmas time, because they showed 2 examples of a fire starting in a Christmas tree. The first one without the sprinklers, it took 7 seconds to reach the ceiling. And when they started the fire at the base of the tree. And then in 2.5 minutes, the entire room was engulfed to the flash point. So you wouldn't be able to get into that room. And the one with the sprinkler, they started the same thing. The sprinkler system was activated in 10 seconds. Again, the fire reached the ceiling in 7 seconds. The sprinkler system became activated in 10 seconds, and the fire was out in 7 minutes. So obviously there was some damage, but there was only it was contained to that room and to the area where that was. So there are pros and cons to it. I also checked the cost of the sprinkler systems. They did a study in 2008 of areas that had them for a long time or that had them for only recently, like less than 5 years. Throughout it, the prices did vary some. It turns out the most expensive one was over $3 a square foot, but there are 3 samples in that building, in that community, but they were all on a well system. So the $3 a square foot included a pumping system to get the water to put out the sprinklers. Other ones range from about $1.50 up to $3. So probably something in the order of $2 to $2.50 a square foot would be the cost of installing the sprinkler system.
Would that be the cost of just the installation of the sprinkler within the structure and not necessarily the upgrade to the fire line utility?
Right.
Yeah.
The way we look at doing it is bringing in a single line, single tap into the house, single line, a 3/4 inch line, and tapping off of that at the meter, probably before the meter, so that your sprinkler line is not metered, but your residential use is metered. But it would just be the piping from there throughout the house to install the sprinkler. Your service line wouldn't change. The way we're looking at it right now.
It's really just using the domestic tap,
Right.
right? It's not a separate fire line or something that
Right.
you would bring like you would in a commercial building.
Right.
Okay.
Is it the black pipe system?
Well, there's a standard in the code. It's in the fire code and repeated in the building code then of what you have to meet for a fire sprinkler system. And the requirements are out there. It has to be designed obviously by a professional and then installed. It can be installed by the plumber or a fire suppression sprinkler company, installation company. So the code doesn't require one or the other, just that the design be there for the design and installation.
So it doesn't specify it can be that new technology they've got out now?
Right. It doesn't limit you to any one kind of.
As long as something is adopted by, can
Right.
meet the NFPA requirements from a materials and installation standpoint, then
Right.
it would be suitable.
Correct.
Okay.
And other than that, I think that's about it.
So that was the biggie that
Right.
that really prompted this to come to us, was the fire sprinkler.
Right.
And is there anything else driving this change in the code that you're aware of? Like,
Well, the building department brought it forward because we want to adopt the new code and stay current with the code. So you have there's always new technology going on. You want to be able to have that recognized in the codes, in your codes, and to bring it forward. So most communities do adopt the code on a 3-year cycle. Some do it 1 year after it comes out or 2 years after, but they have their significant. And most communities are looking at sometime during this year to be looking at it and have it adopted either this year or early 2013.
I was just wondering if the insurance industry was pushing for this.
Actually, when it was adopted, the sprinkler part of it was actually pushed by fire departments, and they are voting code members at the hearings, and they came out in force, I think, when they adopted it in 2000 for the 2009 code. Opponents of it, but I think a delayed start of the system, 2011, in the code, and local communities the Colorado jurisdictions did a study on it locally for the state of Colorado, and they recommended starting January 1st, 2013, that's kind of the date I have on there, and that's when most of them who are going to adopt it are planning to adopt it by. And that gave the opponents of it a chance to go back to the next code hearing, and if they could get it repealed, they wanted to make sure. But it was not repealed, so it was the fire departments that pushed it, and it's a fire safety thing. It protects the firefighters as well. Like I mentioned in the flashpoint, if they're going into a fire, obviously they're not going to get there before 2 minutes from the alarm called in. So most likely the fire is going to have a significant start on them when they get there. And so for their safety, they don't want to send their firefighters into a burning building. That's their worst case scenario. You get obviously many things wrong with it, just the fire itself, but you get structural damage when they're fighting it. If you're roofing and you get caves in or something like that. So that was the impetus behind it, but opponents of it could not get support to repeal it in the next code hearing, so it stayed in, and it looks like it will stay in forever. So it's just a matter, I think, of when a community chooses to adopt it.
So would this also then require a monitoring system as well, so that if there was no with a flow meter essentially, right, or alarm, so that if a sprinkler head was activated, it would automatically notify the fire department?
Yes.
Is that not part of the code, or it is?
I believe it is.
Okay,
I'm
so
not 100%
it's not only a
sure.
wet pipe system; it's also a fire alarm system that
Right.
you have to add as part of
Right.
it. Okay. And you think that amount covered in what you described in the cost?
No.
Yes. I think it would be it. So it would just be a,
Electricians are doing that.
Right. And well, then you have you essentially have a monitoring service too, right? Of some sort, somehow or another, it's notifying a monitoring service who's then notifying the.
Should be this year.
Right. So the ongoing cost to homeowners too is higher, right, if you have to have a monitoring service. Okay. But your recommendation to the board in here was to not adopt that? And
Correct.
But to only adopt it, only require it in townhomes if they didn't have a 2 hour wall between separating?
I guess that's the, in amending it out, then you go back to the requirements of a previous code, which is a minimum of a 2-hour wall if you don't have any utilities going through that wall,
Right.
a common 2-hour wall. If you do plan to put utilities in your wall, the common wall, then you have 2 separate 1-hour walls next to each other. Okay. With the sprinkler system, the code reduces that to, keeps the 2 1-hour wall requirement between them. But if, with the sprinkler, if you can go to a single 1-hour wall if you don't have those penetrations.
Right.
So,
And any multi-story, multi-tenant building would be required to be sprinkled, right?
right.
This is only townhomes separated by a common
Right.
demising wall, right?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're talking single-family dwellings and townhomes.
Townhomes, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, this is in the International Residential Code. The building code already has the requirements for
Okay.
multifamily requirements.
Okay.
So
Were there-
the
were
building
there-
code writes in a trade-off on it, but I think when we were talking to likely one of the bidders on the Camonte project, who it's a town-owned project that has started, the first 2 buildings are up. They went with the 2 separate 1-hour walls. That's just the way they wanted to construct it. And if they were going to do it, they would build that same wall again, the 2 separate 1-hour walls adjacent to each other. That was the design they liked and that they would want to stay with. That's why they were in favor of not having the sprinkler requirement in the code.
any of the other changes that we should discuss, or if anyone had questions about them?
Yeah, the only other thing is the International Energy Conservation Code, which continues to increase a little bit. The insulation requirements in the house, or the protection of it, reducing the energy usage of it, of new construction. And the 2012 code is obviously a little, they keep tweaking it a little bit, I guess. 2009 code, the estimate was 15% better than the 2006 code. The 2012 code better than the 15%, another 15% better than the 2009 code. And I guess it goes back to what the Boulder Consortium of Cities was looking at, and that was a 30% reduction over the 2006 code, which the 2012 code would meet. And if they do it, obviously by increasing your insulation requirements a little bit, making you put in a better window. It's things that I guess required of a builder that you would really want to see in your home anyway, I think. It isn't a overburdening type of requirements that they've added. So.
What was the outcome of the green building code review that we did with the board?
The board is, the board has put that off and has asked us to put together a work session for them to look at it more thoroughly, which we tentatively have set for April. So that's completely separated out of this piece, and they're going to review it and decide.
Okay.
I noticed the fee schedule is based on something that was approved 4/1/1990. Is that correct?
That was probably the first time they did that fee schedule.
So which fee schedule
No,
are
it's
you
just
on?
the schedule. I think it's just
That's
the
the code
chapter.
section number is 4-1-90.
Oh, okay.
That's
All
not
right.
a date.
So what fee schedule are we on? Because we haven't raised it with the latest one.
Right, we
Are
have-
we on the one that was in 2006?
Yes. There's not one in the code.
It's better than 1990.
Yeah. No, that's why I was concerned. I was going, what the heck?
They no longer have it directly in the code, like they used to do with the Uniform Building Code.
Right.
They had it in the code. They took that out when they went to the international code and left it up to the municipalities to do their own. So we established one, I don't know if it was 2003 or 2006. I'm thinking maybe it was even 2003, where we were probably a little bit higher than other communities around.
Yeah.
And I think we intend to not change it. It seems to be a pretty good one, and I think other communities now are catching up to that code. And we should, fee-wise, I think we'd be very close to all the other communities around.
Right. Well, it was kind of an extension of the UBC technology.
Right, yeah. We copied theirs, updated it,
Right.
used the same format.
Yeah.
for our fee schedule.
Just looking real quick at, like, for instance, 18.8-20 amendments. You have a section of item 6, for instance, it says delete section R112.3 in its entirety. But did we see, you didn't provide us with that section.
That's
Did you-
presently how the code reads. That's
Oh,
not
I
a
see.
change.
Okay, all right, okay.
The changes are indicated by either a strike-through or italics.
Okay, that's what I was asking.
So
was-
currently, in the 2006 edition, we were deleting section R112.3,
I got it, okay.
and that's not changed in the newest edition.
A lot of those old ones that we did, they have to do with the Board of Adjustment and such. Our Board of Adjustment is our council, so it tells you how you have to, your membership of your Board of Adjustment. So that's why we delete out that kind of thing, because we've already have our Board of Adjustment set.
So really, this motion, if I'm looking at section 8 and section 9, if we recommended this, doesn't this say that we're adopting the 2012 International Energy Conservation Code in its entirety?
Yes.
But isn't that really what we were talking to the town board about?
No, it was the International Green Construction Code.
Oh.
We were looking at Chapter 6 on that, which took this energy conservation a little bit further and some other requirements. And so we're not looking at the Green Construction Code at all right now.
Okay.
So you are getting some improvement from the International Energy Conservation Code, but not going beyond that
Okay,
at this time.
okay, tied together.
And that's the commercial code,
Right.
right?
It's actually commercial and residential.
Oh, it
both.
is, okay.
Kind of tied together, though.
Yeah,
I've always heard.
yeah. But it used to be separated out into the International Residential Code. Now in their Chapter 11, their energy chapter, they just refer you to the International Conservation Code, Energy Conservation Code. And that book is separated out into residential and commercial are separated.
I don't know if I'm quite prepared to adopt the entire code by way of this, if that's the way I'm reading it.
Are you talking about the International Energy Conservation Code?
Uh-huh.
That's exactly what Ernie, so what Ernie has in his hand right now is
Is that code?
the Energy Conservation Code, which is different from the Green Commercial
No, I understand
codes.
that.
But
But
this is an update of what we have already adopted from 2006?
The town has already adopted the 2006 edition. This would be to adopt
Up
the
to 2012. Right.
Chapter
And during
2000.
our conversation about the green energy code, or the green building code, it seems to me there was some part of that that had to do with the energy conservation code, and we talked about it being a pretty big leap to be jumping all the way to the 2012 when we hadn't adopted the 2009. So, am I?
When we talked to Calmonte people, they didn't think that was an issue for them at all to adopt the 2012 Energy Conservation Code. That they would meet that in their standard construction anyway. The main things that changed were maybe the thickness, a little thickness on your insulation requirement, and your fenestration values for your windows, your openings. And nowadays, I don't even know if anybody would install a single pane window anymore.
Right.
I mean, you go into your double pane and triple panes throughout construction, and that's really the kind of change that you get. I mean, you'd meet these values now with almost any window that's produced.
And without the Green Commercial Codes, isn't it correct that this is a 30% increase in efficiency over 2006?
Right.
Not even, to 2012.
The 2012 is a 30% increase in efficiency over the 2006 code.
Correct.
Well, there was a feeling on 2009 that some parts of 2009 were actually less stringent in 2006. I know that for a fact, so that's why a lot of places didn't.
Thomas, can you actually speak into the microphone? Sorry.
Sorry.
We were asked
I
to.
understand that 2009 was a little less stringent than 2006, and many communities didn't adopt it. That was basically the story.
Thank you.
So it's been all wrapped up in the 2012.
Okay. Other questions for staff? Okay. Okay. Anything else that we should we pay particular attention to here?
Not to my knowledge. Just this is is mostly an update and kind of refresher.
Okay. And so our action here is really just to make comment and review to the board, right? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Anyone have comments or recommendations to the board here?
Dissect this in 15 minutes.
I mean, the only thing that came to my mind was the same question you asked about. It seemed like we were way out in front of everybody else on this, so I was curious if there was a driver on why we were adopting it almost a year ahead of everybody else.
I think we would have been ahead of them, but we kept delaying now, and now we're February. And I mean, the other communities are just looking at it now, or will be shortly, and so we're not going to be very far ahead of the others. So.
Well, just because the table on the back shows that the closest one to approval is most likely the end of this year, so.
Well, a lot of these, the effective date was for the sprinkler requirements. So they may be writing that into their code. They may be already going to adopt it sooner, but delay the actual sprinkler requirements to January 1st, 2013.
Okay.
That was the survey that they did. And the rest of it, I haven't seen anything about anybody not adopting the International Energy Conservation Code along with the rest of the series.
I think it is important that we go ahead and adopt the new code. I mean, looking at this chart, you've got the majority of these communities are already in 2009 code. We're still in the 2006 code, so I think we're way behind in that regard.
Except that, as Tom pointed out, some portions of the 09 code are less stringent than the 06 code.
Right.
So you may
With energy, perhaps with energy efficiency, but that's a small piece of the whole
Sure,
code.
sure.
Sorry.
And then regarding residential sprinklers, my own opinion there is that we should be adopting the code as it's written and requiring residential sprinklers. I think the cost as it relates to the price of a new house is minimal. And it sounds like a big number, but on a 2,500 square foot house, $2 a foot is $5,000. On a new house, people drop $5,000 for an upgrade of carpet. It's nothing. I mean, so the time to do it is new construction. After it's built, retrofitting it that's cost prohibitive. The cost for maintaining a sprinkler system by the homeowner would probably more than be offset by a reduction of insurance rates. So to me, cost is a non-issue, and the safety benefits are immeasurable. So I think as a community, we're really kind of selling out by saying no. We've got a very limited amount of remaining new residential construction that's ever going to be built in this town, so why not make it the best that it can be? We're never going to have it in all the rest of the houses.
And that was another thing I came across, that most insurance companies do give a 10% reduction in your homeowner's insurance if you have the sprinkler systems.
I guess my only concern about the adopting the code was really without having looked at it, sight unseen, is simply just the kind of the same concern that we had when adopting the green building code, which was the potential cost impacts. We just don't understand them. I mean, it's not that they're not. Either that materials right now are already meeting the code, so they may be fine. It's not really any real cost impact. Just don't know what. I don't know if we have enough information here about what the 2012 cost impact is, And then how's that offset by, what's the return on investment in terms of energy savings, right? So I think that's the thing well, that's really my only question. I'm not opposed at all to the more energy efficient standards by any stretch of the imagination. There's just a balance there, and I don't know that we have that information. Other parts of this that are simply, a strike through or a minor tweak, I think staff's recommendations are probably adequate. When we're talking about adopting whole codes, I guess I would like to see a little more, either that come back to us or we take a little deeper dive into that, just as we did on the energy, the other part of the energy code. But I know the town board didn't have to refer this to us at all, but I guess if you're looking for my recommendation is that we would ideally, if we're going to adopt an updated code, that we would take a little deeper dive into that part of it. So I'm sort of neutral about the whole sprinkler thing. So obviously there's benefits and costs, and you're absolutely right that there's not necessarily a lot of new single family, or there would be townhome construction potentially either at Calmonte or new single family home construction at Remington, right? And so theoretically it could affect them, but you're right in that the amount of money that it costs and the time to do it is when you build new. So like I said, I'm sort of undecided about it. Just waffling, that's all. So. But I do think any building we build that's over 420 feet should have that extra set of stairs. There's no question.
Extra.
Any 40-story buildings we build, yeah, definitely should have that extra set of stairs.
We're going to have lots of those.
So, do we want to try to enumerate recommendations or suggestions to the board and knock myself out? Is that what you're saying? I mean, either that or you can simply take down the comments we've made so far and pass those along. I don't know that there's anything in particular that has to be voted on or we have to come to some consensus on. I think simply the comments from the commission may be sufficient to give some guidance to the board. And
Might be interesting to do a straw poll on sprinkler.
yeah, okay.
You want to do that?
Yeah, sure. We can straw poll whether you feel it's important to adopt the residential, the sprinkler code as written or as, well, in this case, let's do it in the affirmative. So in the case of what the staff has recommended is that we would not adopt the sprinklers
For residential,
for the residential
single family.
single family and townhomes unless they didn't build the 2-hour demising wall, essentially, right? Or so if you're in favor of staff recommendations then say yes. Or raise your hand, I guess. Right? So that you're just saying that you're in favor of staff's recommendation to not have sprinklers.
In residential.
In residential.
Single family residential.
3, and then those that would be opposed to that would be 3 to 3. So there you go.
Thank you.
Let the board deal with us.
Okay.
All right, so we're split on that, which is fine.
Okay.
I mean, I think it's one of those things too that we're just unsure.
Okay.
Yeah.
No consensus, and then
Adoption
of the 2012
codes.
2012 codes in their entirety.
Right.
Are you in favor of staff's recommendation is to adopt those?
All right.
So if you're in favor of that, raise your hand. Okay. That was 5 to 1. Only because I would like to take a deeper dive. That's all. So anyway, was there anything else?
Do you want to do one more straw on the sprinklers, just so they understand what the no vote was for? I mean, they might want to understand that, like, the reason, you know,
What am I?
there were no votes because
Well,
people
I-
wanted a more, you know,
More
sprinkler.
stringent, yeah.
So do you mean the no vote
I mean, I
on
don't
the
know,
5-1?
just
Yeah.
throwing it out there that the
No, I
vote
think
might
what
not.
he's saying is should there be a straw vote on sprinklers required in both single-family homes and townhomes?
I'm just not sure if just voting to support or not support staff's recommendation makes it clear that, say, you know,
Right.
Commissioner Folsom is for sprinklers in all those places or not. I don't know, I'm just,
Right, because staff's recommendation is sprinklers in townhomes unless they have the certain, the
1 hour rating, right?
the walls, and no sprinklers in single-family homes,
Right.
where I think what Commission Member Alverson is suggesting is maybe take a vote on, what do you think about sprinklers being required in townhomes and single-family homes?
Okay.
just putting it out there, so Commissioner Folsom, if, you know, it's more clear to the board that somebody thought they should be in those places.
Maybe separate single-family from townhomes, too.
Yeah,
if
I
they
think-
want to do it that way.
If that's really your question, is that what you're suggesting? Is that there's actually someone
There's
may
support possibly for,
you might have supported one but not the other?
Yeah,
Either
I
single-family
it doesn't
or-
have to do it. I was throwing it out there as, and I'm trying, I shouldn't be speaking for
Yeah.
Commissioner Folsom, but
No, my thought is to adopt the code as the code is written,
Right.
which requires sprinklers in single-family homes and townhomes regardless of the wall construction.
Right. And you're
Right.
saying
to just do a straw poll on that so that the board gets some feedback
okay. So
on that.
Yeah. So if you are you interested? Well, I guess I thought I did that the first time. So
no, the first one was whether or not you support staff recommendation, which staff recommendation.
oh yes, yes.
In townhomes, yes, subject to
Okay.
walls.
So
and
would
not
you?
single-family.
Okay. So if you support Commissioner Folsom's a notion that that we should adopt the code as
As is.
written, raise your hand. And not.
It's the same.
Yeah. Okay. Same result. All right.
Same result.
Well,
But it says a different thing.
it does say a different thing. I agree. Okay. Thank you. Okay. I mean, we didn't talk about every single one of these, so. But again, a lot of them are just little minor tweaks to stuff.
Tweaks,
So.
yeah, I think they're.
And I didn't see anything. Well, let me just go through here.
A lot of
I
it's
know I made it.
incorporating the other mechanical code and the electrical code,
Right, which
That's
happens
what
on a
I saw.
regular basis.
regular basis, if that's it.
Yes.
Circle something. then.
It's pretty minor stuff. Oh, I see.
Sorry, I'm just looking for something I thought I circled and now I can't remember what it was.
Was it the fireplace thing? And no standing fireplaces? That was an adjustment.
Oh, no, we've already talked about it. Okay. Okay. Any other ones that anyone else had that they wanted to specifically comment on to the board? Okay. That's all you get out of us, I guess.
That'll work. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. Thanks, Ernie.
Thank you, Ernie.
That concludes item 5 on the agenda. Item 6 is staff announcements and miscellaneous.
Let's start with Commissioner Harden. Did I catch
Two
you?
things that I have. I had told you I was going to send you an email about whose terms expired, and I forgot. I didn't forget, I just said, I'll do it later, and then. So, in 2012, it's Chairman John Craycraft, Commissioners Folsom, Eden, and Ricker, and myself. And then 2014 is Krista Sater, Elderson, McCool, and Rick Meister.
Okay. Does your term actually expire, being the town
Well,
clerk?
No, it's one of those that in the code, it just continues on,
Oh,
but
I
it's
see.
every 2 years.
Okay.
Rather than every
Every 4 years, oh, okay. All right.
Sorry.
So, and then I think Beth will have something on that. The other one I had, real quick, is I've polled the board about having a dinner with the planning commission, and what I've got is Monday, March 5th. Is that a possibility for you guys?
Yes. What day of the week is it?
Monday.
Yeah.
If we were to have a planning commission meeting the first of the month, it would be that Tuesday, so it'd be 2 days in a row. And I'm not sure there's anything on the look ahead at this time.
I don't think so.
No, there's nothing there yet. Do you want to let me know if that date works, and, or, you know, that's the best I could do.
Works.
Is get one day of the board, so.
It works for
we'll
me.
just Go with it?
It works for me. I mean, I don't know if you ever get everybody anyway, but
Yeah,
you just
that's
do your
fine.
best, right? So,
Okay, so
Um,
March 5th at
just
6.
one item, and I don't know that it particularly affected anybody or not, but the last meeting occurred on the night of the caucuses.
Oh,
The last planning commission meeting on the Tuesday, the 5th or whatever it was. So I don't know how you avoid that.
Well, the
It's
next
like an
one-
election day, kind of, and I didn't know.
The next one will be on the Democratic caucus,
Oh, there you go. So, oh, that was the Republican
6th.
caucus, right?
March 6th.
They weren't the same night?
No.
No.
Oh, okay.
The
So that was
Republicans moved theirs
Republican
back a
caucus.
month this time around.
Okay.
Get some.
All right. So
leverage.
anyway, just
see, I don't keep track of those, and I'm not sure, you know.
and I don't
It's
know.
not like it-
Tonight's Fat Tuesday.
That's Fat Tuesday. That's even more. So I just bring it up because I don't know if there's any way to work around it or
I
in
think
the future or
I
something.
think we
but-
can work around that in the future if we need to. That's
But-
duly noted. Appreciate it. Sorry. we missed
And the
that.
next one is the Democratic caucus is when?
The 6th of March.
The 6th of March. Okay.
Currently don't have anything
Scheduled.
scheduled in the forefront. I think we'll be okay.
Okay. Just FYI.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes, at the last meeting, you asked about the advisory commission ordinance that's been being drafted and kind of worked around through the advisory committees. So I had Phyllis make copies of the latest version. There's really not anything in here that addresses planning commission, but it's sort of an FYI, and it's, for your edification. We can put it on our next meeting agenda if you want to discuss it or bring it up, but I thought you might have it for your information.
Thank you.
During our session with the board,
Mm-hmm.
we talked about the kind of just working session. There were things I thought would affect the planning commission potentially, or we talked about staggering the terms so that you didn't have 4 commissioners appointed in 1 year. That we would stagger those a little bit, so you might not have any more than 2, or I think it was 2. If we did it right, you'd only have 2 commissioners come up in any 1 year, right? Which would be a little more consistency and less turnover on the commission at any one time. And so I don't know if they were going to do that or, and whatever. I mean, there were several things, I think.
And that would require a code change. The planning commission's terms are within the municipal code right now. And it provides for staggered terms, but does it designate
Right.
how many and when?
Right, and that's all we were,
So-
if there were 4-year terms and you had only basically 2 staggered every 2 years, and then you have the town clerk, I think is, by code, is a member of the planning commission, right? Then you always have that sort of consistency too. It's just,
Right, and I think that's something that staff is going to be discussing tomorrow.
Yeah, we have a staff meeting tomorrow. We're going to talk about it in a little more detail and see if we can't work something out. And then another question that came up at the last meeting was, when do the 2012 terms finish? And I talked to Town Manager Matt Magley, and he would like your terms to terminate at the same time as the advisory committees, which is in June.
instead of, what is
Instead
it,
of
April?
April, or we also had talked about November being a potential time.
But that was, originally they were in April because it coincided with the previous town board elections?
Yes.
Or thereafter, right? And then now, so either, if you were consistent, you would stick with that and change it to November, but to be consistent with the other
With the
ones,
advisory committees.
you would go to June.
That's the
Okay.
proposal. So if you have any comment about that, or.
I'm good with that.
I thought you might be.
No,
Okay.
I don't have do you have an opinion about that? Anyone?
No.
Okay. We'll update you as we become updated.
Okay. Anyone else have anything exciting to add? Color to our lives? No? Okay. All right.
I just can't believe I've been here for 4 years.
Have you?
Has it gone by that quick?
I can't believe I've been here for like 10, I think. I think I finished out a term that was like a year and a half or 2 years for somebody, and then I think I'm on my second full appointment, which has been, I've been on the commission for 10 years.
10 years.
Surely Christmas.
If you're on long enough, you'll retire.
What's that?
If you're on long enough, you'll retire.
Maybe sooner.
Maybe.
Okay. That's it. We'll adjourn. Thank you.
Thank you.